You guys, we have the best treat for you today. We are talking with Jenna, who is a fellow Saint artist, but she is known as the Sober Makeup Mentor. You heard that. Sober. And she's young. She's my age. And when I got to meet Jenna, I was just floored by her, inspired by her, and she's just a powerhouse. And you guys, we wanted you to be able to hear a different perspective on how Jenna chose to become sober and how she is helping change the lives of other women.
Perfect.
Welcome to the Mizell Show.
An inspiration for a new generation.
Hi, I'm Alana Mizell, a loving mother of two, a devoted wife to Steven, and an entrepreneur helping women realize their dreams and potential.
And I'm Steven Mizell, caring father of two, a devoted husband to Alana, and a driving force to help young men prepare for life after college football.
And if that wasn't enough, we're a biracial couple.
She was raised in the North, but I was raised in the South.
The only thing normal about our lives, who am I kidding? It's never normal around here. Join us for the Mizell Show.
Right now.
Hi, girl. How are you?
Okay, you're gonna die whenever you... Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi! This is my husband, by the way.
Hello.
Hi, husband.
Nice to meet you.
That's Phil.
Hey, Phil. How are you?
Good. How are you?
We're good.
We're good.
We're making it. I feel like it's just, one thing after the other these days, right?
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's I feel like we try to document as much as we can this moment in time because it's so weird.
Yeah.
And it's such a time that like our children will look back on and they'll be like, what were you doing during the time? How was it? Like, what was going on? And
yeah. So in Memphis, we had snow. I was telling you that. And we don't do snow here. Yeah. And now we're on a boil water advisory. So you can only consume boiled water.
Yep.
And we just keep saying, at some point, we're going to look back and be like, remember the time, I'm ready for the remember the time phase.
Exactly.
Right? That'll be good days. When I'm like, remember whenever we wore masks everywhere we went?
Yeah.
Like, it's so bizarre.
And remember all those laser treatments I now have to get from all of my mask knee scars? Remember that?
So true.
The life. We're living the life. So I had talked about you to Steven after our yoga situation.
Yeah.
Right. When Jenna's over there with Cass, like killing the yoga, and I'm like just trying to not laugh the whole time. That's fine. Clearly
I'm scared to be in the front row. I was like, oh, this is the only spot left. I guess I'm like in the front.
I gotta be serious. And then I was showing him your page and how amazing it is. And so I was like,
you.
We got to interview her. We got to.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you've done amazing. And go ahead.
Oh no, it's weird. It's wild. Like, I feel like looking back, because it's only been 2 years now, but it's wild to look back to see, growth with anything. Like, we're always growing, we're always evolving, but just seeing like where I came. Well, I mean, we can do it with the Saint business too. Like, you look back at like your first makeup video and you're like, oh my God, what was I doing?
Why did you post that? Yeah.
But yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So I guess let's just start with like the overall always interview question. Tell me a little bit about Jenna.
Yeah. So I am originally from West Virginia. West by God, Virginia, born and raised there. And then he was my boyfriend at the time. He got into Old Dominion University here in Virginia to study industrial and organizational psychology. If anybody knows what that is, then you get a star for the day. It's quite the niche.
Props. Yeah.
So he pretty much does business consulting at like a higher level. It's like he focuses on leadership and training and development. So he got into his PhD program in Virginia. So almost 6 years ago now, we've been living in Norfolk, Virginia, like near Virginia Beach area. Mm-hmm. And when we moved down here, I had no job. Like thinking about like we lived in this crummy like 1-bedroom apartment and I was job searching, and then I got into corporate sales. And just being away from home, I always like had very low pitfalls in that had to deal with alcohol. But I never like made the correlation between them. Like I like literally like lost a job because I was drinking and driving, and I flipped a truck. Like I had really like what people would consider like rock bottoms, but never in my life was like, oh, it's because of alcohol. It's because I drink too much. Like I never made the correlation. So living down in here in Virginia, I got into personal development. And I think the first personal development book I read was You Are Badass by Jen Sincero. It was really good.
So good.
And and then I ended up just like I was depressed and had anxiety all of the time. Like I was anxious at work. I'd have panic attacks, and I ended up going to therapy for the the irony of this. It's so hypocritical. As I went to therapy because addiction is so prevalent in my family. You're talking generations of addiction. So I went to therapy because I wanted to help other people get clean and help people in my family get clean and sober. And while I was in therapy, my therapist was able to recognize immediately that I had a problem with alcohol, that I had alcoholism. And she just flat out asked me, she was like, how much do you drink? And I just remember thinking like, I'm going to be honest. I'm just going to be honest with her. And she was so taken back, and she was like, I can't believe you're so small to be drinking that much.
Yeah.
And I relapsed for months and months and months trying to get sober. And then in November of 2017, I got sober. And in doing that, I was online searching. Like I remember getting on Instagram and I tried to look for people that were my age, that looked like me, that talked like me, that I could look to, that I was like, okay, they don't drink. Like I can look to them for inspiration. And I couldn't find it. So I came out like around 6 months sober, and I decided to talk about it on social media. And the support that I got was overwhelming. And so that's where my platform like kind of started, is I was just opening up, kind of talking about my addiction, and that I was 6 months sober. And then a year, I remember naming all of the things that I went through in a whole year. Like I saw Beyonce, I had Christmas, I had Thanksgiving, New Year's, my birthday, all of these things that I didn't have alcohol with. And I got so much back from that. And now we're here where we're at, where I have like my platform.
Yeah. And at the time you were working in corporate America, selling, which is a hard job to not be. I mean, I feel, but I also feel like it's kind of surrounded with like, okay, now let's go to dinner and everybody gets a drink at dinner, and kind of like that environment. So that's where you were at the time that you became sober. Were you a Saint artist?
I wasn't.
Okay. At what point in your journey did you decide Saint is like the next thing I need to do?
So it's weird because I found Kat Fairchild in September of 2018. So going on almost a year after. And I remember watching her. First, I thought it was just baloney. Like I saw her, I was like, who's doing their makeup out of one palette? This is like,
that's a joke.
I have like literally like a suitcase full of makeup. And, but I was so intrigued by it because I was like, this is something that I could incorporate into that is like, that doesn't just involve me talking about my sobriety. And I bought the makeup. I absolutely loved it. And I became an artist in September of 2018 and started like sprinkling it in to my social media then.
Yeah. That's so awesome.
So a lot of times when people go through journeys, they always say it was one moment where I was able to flip the switch and just make a decision. It seems like you've been able to flip two switches, one switch to actually become sober, then another switch to actually share your story. So what helped you decide that this was the time to flip the switch? Because like you said, you went through therapy, you had these rock bottoms, but it seemed like you just kind of woke up and did it. It wasn't that simple, but like, what helped you flip not one, but two switches?
So I will say, so November 4th, I have it actually tattooed on my wrist. November
Yes, ma'am.
4th of 2017. It's wild because I have the picture saved of when I had my last drink. I didn't even know that that was going to be the day.
last
Like, because
drink.
I had tried so many times over and over and over again. And then it's kind of like I found this quote the other day, if you don't mind me sharing.
Yeah, we love it.
It really spoke to me because it made me like, it took me back to that time whenever I was really like struggling. It says, the devil knows your name, but he calls you by your sin. God knows your sins, but he calls you by your name. And
that's beautiful.
Okay. Just drop that mic, sis.
yeah. And that is what it was. It was like the devil was always there tapping me on my shoulder, and I'd be like, okay, I was so used to that habit. It's a habit that you like, a bad habit that you just like, I just kept going back to. And it was the only way that I really knew how to cope, how to celebrate, how to like really do anything. And I went out on November 3rd that night. I had a girls' night, and it like nothing crazy traumatic happened. I woke up the next day, and I do this all the time too, which is crazy. I was like really avid runner at the time, and I would like smoke a pack of cigarettes, drink like a fish, and then wake up and run like a 5K in the morning. And that's what I did on the 4th.
Right.
Like I ran a 5K that day.
Oh my
and
gosh.
I remember being like, I don't want to feel this way. I'm going to try to do this for a week. I'm going to try to really do this for a whole week. I can do it for a week. And then I made it a week, and I had my husband. I told my husband, my mom, and my best friend on what I was focused on and committed on, so they could hold me accountable. And it was probably, I made it a month, and then 2 months, I hit this point where I had a really stressful week at work, and I looked at my husband and I said, I want to drink. Like right now, I want to go to the store, and I want to get wine, and I want to drink. And he was like, sit on the couch, don't move. And he went and he picked up sushi from our favorite restaurant, and came back home, and we just ate it on the couch. And that was like my one moment that I really needed him to hold me accountable.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then I would say for my social media, the place where I found like the turning point for that, I posted it the other day. I did a before and after. I was very elusive. Like I was very vague in what I was posting about, but I just said, I'm working on a healthier version of me. And I did a before and after of just 3 months, what I looked like without alcohol. And it was such a drastic change.
Yeah.
And I got so many people reaching out to me after that. I think that was like the moment where I was like, I need to be more open about this, especially coming from West Virginia, because this is a state that is plagued with addiction because of the opioid crisis. There's a lot of poverty there. And so a lot of people suffer from addiction. So I knew it was just something that I wanted to be more vocal about.
Yeah. So it wasn't necessarily a switch. It was like little bit by little bit. One of my favorite quotes ever is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So that's literally how you did it. You were just like, if I can get through a week, maybe now I can get through 2. So breaking it down real small. I love that. I love that. Are you looking at the questions?
Yeah.
Oh, this is a good one. Okay. So Stephen works with Division I athletes who they typically come from homes that are broken, or it's pretty normal. I mean, not pretty normal. It is normal to drink, smoke, sell, you name it. So for kind of put yourself in the shoes of those players, what would you suggest to them that would be kind of like the little bit of advice on them kind of trying to get out of it? Because you came from that environment. You said you have years, like generational addiction.
Yeah.
What would be kind of your point of advice for them?
Well, I think it's like, for me, I always look back to like getting out of West Virginia. Really, I don't think if I would have left the area, because you become a part of your environment. You become, like, I talk about this quote all the time, you become like the top 5 people that you spend the most time with. So know that I think people like need to know like you can have fun without substances that like alter your mind state. It's totally possible. I used to think that I used to be such a firm believer. My biggest fear was I'll never have fun without alcohol. Like it's not possible for me to do. And now I have the most fun that I've ever had. I laugh harder than I ever have. I'm the most myself and I'm the most in control. But just knowing that when you look at successful people in this world, whether it be anybody really sports related, you look at Tom Brady or you look at like Kobe Bryant or Tiger Woods, like these people, they are really taking care of their bodies. They're taking care of their minds. And those are the people that you look to for inspiration. As much as I love my family so much. My dad is now sober, which is so good.
Awesome.
And so is my mom. Like we celebrated. I got married in October, and we were at my wedding reception, and none of us drank, and it was amazing.
That
we
is
all
so
had the best
awesome.
time.
It was beautiful.
Yeah. And every one of you remember it.
And we all remember it. And
That's
so,
awesome.
yeah, I mean, like, I would say you can motivate. I look at it as like, I was able to motivate people in my family without trying to control them. I wasn't like, you need to do this. Like, this is something you have to do. They were able to see me living in a different way and knew that it was possible for them if I accomplished it. And so, yeah, I would say look to the people that you want to be the most like as inspiration and see how they're living their life.
And I think there's something also that you bring up. Me and Alana's reading. We're reading 50 Cent's new book. What's it? Hustle Harder. And in his book,
have you read it?
I haven't.
Oh,
definitely
it's
should
so
read it. It's
good.
a really good. It's really good.
I judged it for like 6 months because I was like, I'm not reading a book by 50 Cent.
But something you just said was
karma got me.
was very important to a lot of student athletes, people in general. He says in his book that a lot of the African American population are one of the few populations that, when they quote unquote make it, or when they are on a higher trajectory, they don't leave the hood. But every other race is okay with leaving. And like you mentioned, sometimes you have to be okay with leaving and letting go of the hood, and letting go of your area in order to grow. And I think you're a prime example of how you can get out, but also give back. And through your social media platform, through your phone calls, through your inspiration, you now have helped your parents, but you didn't have to go back to West Virginia to do it. Right. You were able to help them far. But I think people struggle with it a lot, of leaving and thinking they're letting their community down, but there are other ways to help the community out. I think you're a great example of that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, there's always so many ways to give back and to help out and not leave completely. I mean, leaving my state, I'm probably the loudest, proudest West Virginian that you'll find. Like, I still love my state. I still like go Mountaineers and still love the place. But yeah, it was something I had to get out, or I would just have been falling into the same cycle and the same habits.
I love that.
No, I think that's great. It's a great tidbit. So I had to ask you a question. It's not on the list, but like,
it's not on the list.
Getting
off the list.
Listen, let's go rogue.
He's not in here, but like, how important was your man? How important was your husband? Because a lot of people look to significant others, and we've been blessed through all of this to have that relationship, and clearly you're able to have that too. But how important has he been in helping you? And does he even realize how important he really was?
Yeah. I mean, I can't thank him enough, because really we moved down here and we have no family here. So he was my main like support system. Without him, like, I think back to that night that I told you I was on the couch and I was like, I want to go get a bottle of wine. If I didn't have him there to hold me accountable, I would have driven to the grocery store. I would have picked 2 to 3 bottles of wine up, a pack of cigarettes, and I would have sat on the back porch like I always did. And I would have relapsed that night. So he has been such an immense support system. We've been together for 10 years, and people will always be like, I remember when we got engaged, people were like, oh, finally, like he finally put a ring on it. Like, and for me, I was like, this was God's timing. Like before I wasn't in the right mind state. I wasn't like, our relationship wasn't where it needed to be in order for us to make this commitment. And now we're totally in the right place in the right time. So I think it was like the perfect time for us to get married when we did, even though it was in the middle of a pandemic. But I honestly, like, thinking back, wouldn't even change one thing about our wedding day. It was
That's
perfect.
awesome.
It was just us and our parents and my grandma, my brother, and
That's
we
perfect.
just had like such an amazing time. So he's been a pivotal piece of the reason that I was able to do this and to stay motivated and to see the bigger picture as to why I was doing this. And we celebrate my sobriety date like it's my birthday every
Let's
year.
go.
Like,
Awesome.
we have cake, we have
is.
dinner. Yeah, it really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So
like,
yeah,
you wouldn't be celebrating your birthday probably if you didn't.
yeah,
decide to get
it would be,
sober.
yeah, it would be so different. And really, like, the reason that I do, like, one of the biggest reasons that I stay sober, well, number one is me, and I have God to thank because of that. Like, every relationship got stronger with my sobriety, especially my relationship with God. And the second comes my children. Like, I think about breaking that generational cycle, and it's like the buck stops here. Obviously, there's a lot that's out of my control. I have to have faith in God that he's going to take the wheel and he's going to guide my children. But I'm doing everything that I can in my power to not pass that torch on to somebody else.
Yeah. I love that.
Did you know that I sell makeup? Not only do I sell makeup, but the makeup that I sell is 3D makeup, which allows you to highlight and contour your face in a super simple compact. As a mom, I could not survive without my simplified routine. Not only that, but it's exactly what you need. Exactly when you need it, all in one spot. Go ahead and check out Alana Mizell on Instagram or alanamizell.com to learn more.
Oh, okay. I love this one. How was focusing on your sobriety and being able to be open and vulnerable about it, how has it allowed you to really transform your business?
So I think, once I got in January of 2020, so let's be real and honest. Like, I would say I had 3 switches that flipped, because I really didn't know what I was doing with social media whenever I first signed on with Saint. I had no freaking idea. I would post every once in a while and get on and maybe share some things, but I wasn't consistent with anything that I was doing. So January 2020, I made a commitment to myself. It was non-negotiable. By the end of the year, I want to be at 10,000 followers, and I want to be doing Saint full time with as far as making money. And by making that commitment and really broadening my horizon, not putting limits on myself with what I was doing, I was able to reach those goals. And so I think with overcoming something like alcoholism and then being vulnerable about it, it kind of it gives you this confidence. There's nothing that I'm holding back. Everything that I have about myself is out there. People know, but it inspires others. I kind of give a piece of myself on social media. I get pretty deep where a lot of people don't, and that's fine. But I give a deeper piece of myself. But in return, I get back hands down so much more. I get back people that are cheering me on. They want to see me win. They want to see me win, not only in my sobriety, but they want to see me win in my business. And that motivates me to show up. I want to be real and raw and honest about more things in my life and show up with my business. And it gives me more confidence.
Yeah.
And I think it also COVID really kind of helped you. I mean, COVID kind of put people in front of your platform and let people, we talked about it kind of with the racism. You couldn't run from it. It was everywhere. So with you, if someone is logged into your social media, they can't run from, man, maybe I do really have a problem listening to her. I can't just look away. I can't go out because, you're stuck in the house. So they're hearing your message and almost forcing them to reach out to you or forcing them to make that change. And that's what we've noticed through the restrictions, the COVID, we all being in one location during that time frame.
Yeah.
It forces people to their realities. And I think that really helped you and your support system, of people realizing, hey, she's kind of like me, and I can't turn her off. I need to hear this.
Except they probably had a drink in their hand because that's how they were coping with COVID.
True.
Yeah. So many. Addiction is so on the rise right now because of the pandemic. And I mean, in the past, I don't remember the exact statistic, but I think it's within the past 5 years, alcoholism within women is up 58%, which is it's a crazy number.
Wow.
And I think it does, like, when people think of the word alcoholic, there's so much shame, there's so much guilt and embarrassment that's surrounded by that word. And I don't think that there should be. Like, I think if you freaking overcome an addiction, and like, I'm proud, I'm an alcoholic. I overcame something that was really, really hard in my life. And if I can be loud and proud about it, and it inspires someone else to not feel that shame and not feel that guilt, like even one person, then my job is done.
Yeah.
But also, people, when they hear that word alcoholic, they think of someone that is waking up in the morning, they're pouring a glass of alcohol, they're drinking all day long just to get through the day. And it's not always like that. It's not always like that. Alcoholism is a progressive disease. So you can go from drinking one day, then it progresses to 2, then 3, then 4. And I could see that within myself going to therapy. I was like, okay, I'm on a slippery slope here. I'm drinking 4 days a week. And it really started to scare me.
Yeah. And I will tell you, so I met you in Miami at our trip, and that was the first trip in my life that I didn't drink the whole trip. And I remember telling Steven when I left here, so typically at football games, I'm like the hype girl.
So let's bring this back so you kind of get a understanding.
Yeah.
Her father, her family, alcoholism runs on her father's side of the family.
Oh, rampant.
It runs rampant. Yeah. Like, to the point where she used to tell me stories that her father's dad would like have the kids go the old school, fetch the beers, go get the beers. Yeah. And like always would see his dad with one. And so she mentioned that to me.
When I was little, it was like, there's pictures of me when I'm 3 grabbing my dad's beer on a Sunday for a football game.
Yeah.
And I remember one year in high school, he just decided he was not going to drink for a full year, like just challenged himself. And that was his definition if he'd had alcoholism or not. And I'm like, I don't think that's really how it works. But, and he did it. And he was like, all right. It was like the day that he hit a year.
Back on the wagon, celebratory beer.
Celebratory beer, exactly.
That's not how that works. So, and then like, I didn't really notice that I had a problem until he started coaching football. And so that was every weekend, every Saturday, I was like tearing it up. And then it'd be time to go home, and he'd have to drive me home because I couldn't remember, like, there's no way I was driving.
Yeah.
And then this year was the first year he couldn't go home. He couldn't drive me home. He had to go home on the bus. And I remember sitting in the parking lot like, how am I going to get home?
Yeah.
So I called Cassidy, my upline, and she was like, okay, this is not like, no, chick, you got a problem. And for weeks I was like, no, I don't. Yeah. So then I go to Arizona, ruin my trip in Arizona because I get hammered. Like, don't remember half of it, the 9s. And I was like, I'm not ruining Miami. And I remember being on the plane and being like, if Jenna can do it, so can I. But like exactly what you said. Yeah. And I was like, if Jenna can do it, so can I.
And that's something that she really took ownership of the entire trip. And it's one of those things where she wanted to control the narrative. And we keep going back to this book, but in 50 Cent's book, he doesn't drink. He like sells alcohol, and he sells it, and he has a company, but like he literally does not drink. He talks about going out and getting the club soda and letting people know that it's okay to, go to those corporate meetings. But that's one thing that she said. She said, the first night in Arizona, it was tremendous. But then the other 2 nights where I really get a chance to get to know these women, I couldn't enjoy it because I was feeling the after effects of that. And so when she left she left on Thursday to go to Miami. She's like, I'm not going to drink the whole
Not doing
weekend.
it.
And I was like, let's go, let's do it. And sure enough,
Mhm.
that was one of her first trips, of course, with her.
No, it's my first trip ever.
With any.
As long as I'm not pregnant, because like I haven't drank when I was pregnant, but
Yeah.
but like nobody's gonna be like, are you sure you're not gonna drink when you're pregnant?
Yeah.
Obviously. So
But that's so good.
I know.
Yes.
All because of you. No, but like it is
Inspiration.
true.
Definitely inspiration. Yeah.
And like one of my other friends, dear friends, also got sober during the pandemic. And I'm like, no, like you got to get it to like you have that problem. Like you're saying the narrative as you're telling the story that people are in the dead middle of, and that's when they go, oh,
Yeah.
in case kids are listening, you're like, that's me.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
But one thing I found interesting was the people that knew that I used to drink kept saying, are you sure? Like, do I make you uncomfortable? Do you still get that?
Oh my gosh, all the time. It's crazy because like I feel like it goes both ways because I know people like I'm known now as like I think everybody knows that I'm sober, which what an accountability card that is.
Yes.
And
You better be, sis.
and it's like I said, in a way it inspires others because like a lot of people I had a retreat for my girls in September. We went to Pittsburgh just for the annual conference. It was virtual, but some of us got together. And I almost feel like people are like, oh, I don't want to let loose in front of her, which I'm like, I bought some champagne for them to have like you can totally, I think there are 1,000,000%. There's people out there that can drink responsibly and they can drink in moderation. But I feel like there are people that are like, oh, I don't know. I don't want to like drink around her because she doesn't drink at all.
Is she judging?
And
yeah.
Or people will ask like prior to COVID, especially when we were having more get-togethers, they'd be like, are you okay? Like, are you sure? Can I drink around you? Or even my very best friend, she's been my best friend for years. She's like, are you sure it's okay? Or have you ever heard of the app Marco Polo?
Yes. Yeah.
So she lives in Michigan. We've been best friends forever. And she'll like be cooking dinner and she'll take a sip of wine and she'll be like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, what are you sorry about? Like, I'm not going to come through the screen like, give me it.
Right.
And I think something also you made a really good point that we use. I was talking to one of my players about this. Social media can be helpful in many ways, but also it's a real accountability partner because sometimes when you tweet things and post things, you're not talking to anybody but yourself. You're like, and so I think you being able to have that, and you say you want to have that massive accountability partner. So through all of this, you know, I personally am not a real drinker at all. Like, so with
not until he met me.
Well, not at all, really. And so with your husband, like, does he have the occasional beer? Does he not drink? Did he feel like he was enabling you through some of these dark times? Because he was like, okay, well, let's both do it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that because, you know, like I said before, you become a product of your environment. And my main hobby was drinking. And so during like my active addiction, that was our main hobby. Like we would go to bars and we would drink and play pool and waste so much money. And then coming like down from that to going to not drinking, he will have like an occasional cocktail here or there. He did dry January with me, which was nice, but I have like an overload now because I work with so many non-alcoholic beverage companies.
Yeah.
So we have like a stash of just non-alcoholic beverages. So he will honestly choose that. He drinks a lot of non-alcoholic beer because there's now like Budweiser makes Budweiser Zero. Heineken has Heineken Zero. So we have a ton of those that he'll just sip. Non-alcoholic beer is not something that I drink, but he will pick that up at the store and he will have that instead because it tastes exactly the same. There's just no alcohol in it, and he doesn't have to worry about having a hangover the next day or a headache.
Yeah. It's kind of just like a yummy beverage.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself going with this, with Saint? Kind of like, where's Jenna going in the next 3 to 5 years?
I really, so whenever made this commitment to myself in January of 2020, I was like, I want to hit 10,000 followers. There's a lot of things that I have like toyed with and thought about. One big thing is I would love to get into some type of starting a conference. I think getting a conference together where there's women that are in recovery, it would just be so powerful. I think for women to come in and they hear from other women and really get that inspiration and that motivation and get rid of the shame. Like we're all there. We're all loud and proud. We're in recovery for any addiction. I really, obviously, like goals with Saint is the culture of my team is probably the most important to me because I think that creates sustainability. And so growing my team in an organic way and still keeping the good culture that we have, because I really, ironically, we hear like your vibe attracts your tribe, and I have a lot of women that are in recovery on my team. So we have a really good group of women that are inspiring on my team.
I love
but
that.
I actually interviewed a virtual assistant 2 days ago just to kind of get an idea, because I do plan on taking my social media to a large level and I want to see where someone could help me once it gets to that point. I'm hoping by the end of the year.
Yeah.
So she asked me, where do you see your business by the end of the year? And I was like, I want to have 50,000 followers.
Yeah.
I want to have over 800 women on my team. And I think by then I would need someone to help me, but I really want to take this as far as I can go. I always tell my mom, I'll be on the Today Show one day. I'm always like, you watch, I'll be on the Today Show one day.
Speak it into existence, sis. I love it. I love that.
You definitely speak it to existence. And I do think, if you move forward with that idea for the conference, you can sign us up. We would love to come.
I would love it.
And be a part of it. Guest speaker. Alana's a planner, so if you need help planning it, whatever you need to do, please let us know. I mean, as a male, I will definitely say there's a stigmatism to women in terms of alcohol, in terms of a guy can go to AA and he'll get the pat on the back, he'll get the coin and rah, you did this. Before a woman, people don't talk about it. People just kind of brush it to the side and say, yeah, well, okay. But I think it's something that could really be impactful. So to wrap this up, I'm going to put you on the spot. What are you going to name this conference?
Ooh, that's a good question.
All of us were like, ooh.
I know. That's something really that I hadn't really even thought about yet. I don't know.
Okay, you got some homework then. You want to know?
I know. I have homework.
Yeah.
Yes.
By the time we launch this episode, let's have a name.
Yeah.
Not in stone, though.
No, you can be flexible.
The way the wind blows around here, you just don't know.
Imagine going back to West Virginia and having a conference for
in
women.
West Virginia.
Over 500 plus women and being, oh gosh. That's beautiful.
It's like in the thousands.
Thousands.
It's crazy because I feel like with we're on video all the time and recording ourselves. And I did a training for Team Icon in, I can't remember when it was. It might have been June-ish that I did it. And even looking back then, I always think of looking back to that because I talked about manifesting and speaking things into existence. And, if you're working hard and you believe in yourself, it'll pay off. And just looking from June until now, where my business has gone in that short amount of time. So I can't imagine getting to a conference level where I could have something to bring the women together and looking back on this podcast and being remember whenever we named it?
Yeah. That's like a reel in the making right there.
Yeah.
Yes. I love it. There won't be reels anymore. Maybe. Who knows? Next week reels will be canceled. It's fine. Oh my gosh. Well, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. Seriously, I appreciate it so much.
So if you guys are enjoying this, definitely leave us a review. Give us the feedback. If there's something you guys want us to talk about, reach out to us on our website at themizellshow.com. There is a contact section. You can put it in there. We would love to hear about it. Or you can always go over to Instagram at The Mizell Show. Also, as always, don't forget to screenshot this episode and just add it to your stories and tag us on Instagram, on Facebook at The Mizell Show. Thanks, guys. Are you loving The Mizell Show? Well, we love you all. And did you know that you can have me and Steven talk to your team or a group of 25 of your friends? All it takes is 25 people showing up on either a Zoom call, a Facebook Live, or really anywhere. Hopefully in person sooner rather than later. But how do you get us? So all you have to do is email themizellshow@gmail.com, or you can direct message us on Instagram @themizellshow.